The air on Virex 9 was thick with moisture, draped in the kind of heat that made even the native foliage sweat. Dense jungle canopy filtered the sunlight into fractured emerald shards. Below, the Ziraxi troopers moved in disciplined silence, their iridescent armor gleaming faintly despite the grime. 8 limbs to a soldier, twin ocular stalks swiveling constantly, perfectly engineered for threat detection. They were the best of their kind. Precision, discipline, tech. And still, they were dying. Scout Captain Krthex paused mid-step, a subtle flicker on his HUD drawing his gaze. Thermal feed clean. No biological traces within 2 kilometers. He blinked to shift to motion scan. Still nothing. Another false negative. He hissed through mandibles, mandating his squad halt. We lost contact with Unit Theta 5 cycles ago. And you say there's no trace? Affirmative, said Technician Jax, from behind the squad's lead walker. Even spore readings are clean. No footprints. No heat. Not even a loose strand of protein residue. It's like they evaporated. A rustle echoed somewhere to the right. Half the squad swiveled, laser-tipped rifles ready. But when the foliage parted, it was only a local predator, 4-legged and feathered, fleeing something unseen. They relaxed, just slightly. That's when they noticed the silence. No chirping from the flying things. No buzz from the nectar bats. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. A single Ziraxi took one cautious step forward and triggered it. The jungle screamed. A flash burst of concussive light sent half the squad tumbling. The lead walker erupted, twisted metal soaring overhead like a dying bird. Krthex scrambled upright, his limbs shaking, sensors fuzzing from the electromagnetic feedback. Through the haze, a shape moved, brief, humanoid, fluid as shadow. Visual confirmation, terrestrial biped. He managed to bark. Deploy intercept net. The command was never executed. One by one, the squad went dark. It wasn't loud, the way they died. It was surgical. One vanished in a puff of smoke. Another fell backward, gurgling, mouth bubbling with blood. The last 3 fired wildly into the underbrush, screeching in panic. Krthex saw the shimmer too late. His lens picked up the faintest ripple, like heat above asphalt, and then it was gone. Something had passed within inches of him. Something cold. He ran. He didn't stop until the extraction zone, lungs heaving with filtered air, mandibles clicking prayers he hadn't muttered since soldier school. 2 other survivors waited there, equally shaken, one missing a leg and repeating, "They walked through me. I didn't see. Krthex called in orbital support. Airstrike patterns. Satellite scans. Still nothing. No footprints. No heat. No bodies. Just a crude human symbol burned into the tree bark with plasma, a skull wearing leaves for a crown. Aboard the Ziraxi flagship orbiting Virex 9, General Zarin listened to the after-action report with growing irritation. The recordings were chaotic, static, screams, and something else, whispering. Some of the footage looped endlessly, as if overwritten. "Ghosts," muttered the communications officer. Zarin turned sharply. "What did you say?" The officer straightened. "They're calling them ghosts, sir. The humans. They don't show up on our sensors. They disappear between frames. They're using primitive stealth, but it's beyond anything our systems can counter." Zarin scoffed. "That is absurd. No creature without thermal shielding or cloaking technology can. They don't have shielding. That's the point," the officer whispered. "They're using mud, bark, insect pheromones, chameleon suits. They mimic ambient noise. Some of them don't even wear gear, they just blend into the terrain." Silence lingered too long. "How many of our soldiers dead?" Zarin finally asked. 73. Including 4 elite strike teams. "And how many humans confirmed?" The officer hesitated. "None confirmed. No bodies recovered. No visuals except the one." He tapped a key. The screen showed a still from helmet footage, grainy and smeared. But it was there, a humanoid figure crouched in the branches, almost invisible, staring directly into the camera lens. Painted face. Leaves in their hair. Eyes calm, patient. The frame before it, nothing. The frame after, also nothing. Zarin leaned forward. How did we not detect this? Because you weren't looking for something that didn't want to be seen, came a new voice. Everyone turned as the human prisoner stepped forward in chains, grinning through bruises. He'd been captured during a failed orbital escape 2 cycles ago. Lieutenant Jason Reeve, 3rd Recon Ghost Division. His file had a single line in the threat analysis column: avoid engagement in low-visibility terrain. Psychological warfare suspected. Reeve cracked his neck and smiled wider. Camouflage isn't about hiding. It's about being part of the scenery, about not triggering your instincts. We're not ghosts. We're hunters. Zarin glared. Your kind are outnumbered, outgunned. Your terrain advantage is temporary. Eventually, our technology will adjust. Reeve nodded slowly.
Sure.
Maybe. But not before you start seeing shadows that aren't there. Not before you hesitate to enter your own patrol zones. Not before your soldiers start asking, "What's that behind me?" when nothing's there. He leaned forward, eyes sharp, voice low. You picked the wrong place for a straight fight. The jungle doesn't hide us. It helps us. The room stayed quiet long after Reeve was dragged away. On Virex 9, as dusk settled, a squad of Ziraxi reinforcements moved into the area of the earlier ambush, eyes wide, sensors sweeping every inch. One soldier paused, staring at a vine that didn't sway like the others. He blinked. The vine was gone. Then so was he. The jungle made no sound. The transport shuttle landed with a metallic groan, disgorging the new squad of Ziraxi elite shock troopers into the sweltering embrace of Virex 9's jungle. General Zarin had grown tired of ghosts. This time, he sent the Arzenal detachment, combat veterans, trained to operate without support, each equipped with adaptive sensors and counter-stealth augments. Logic dictated escalation. Sergeant Vorik stepped off the ramp first, antennae twitching. Full spectrum scans, overlapping intervals. No assumptions. No patterns. The soldiers obeyed, spreading out in triangular formations. Drones buzzed overhead, mapping terrain in real time. Every movement was calculated, synchronized. And still nothing. No bodies. No human heat signatures. Not even a rusted casing or dropped ration pack. Yet static crackled in the comms, and a persistent distortion followed their satellite feeds. Vorik knew what it meant. Interference. Not mechanical, but psychological. He didn't like it. 12 kilometers in, they found something, an alien skeleton, one of their own. It had been posed deliberately. Sprawled against a tree, its weapon pointed outward, empty sockets covered with human dog tags. Written on the trunk in dried mud was a single phrase. You're not being hunted. You're being studied. Zarin received the update from orbit. His frustration simmered beneath every clipped order. He authorized total jungle clearance protocols, napalm scatter grenades, sonic disruptors, environmental purge crawlers. None returned. Not even wreckage. Lieutenant Reeve, still chained aboard the Ziraxi command cruiser, laughed when told. That's the thing about fire, he said. Only works when you know where your enemy is. Burn the trees, and we become the trees. You're still thinking in lines. But humans? We think in corners. General Zarin narrowed his eyes. You are a savage species. You improvise because you lack discipline. Reeve's grin sharpened. We improvise because it works. On the surface, Vorik's detachment pressed deeper. They passed through zones where their own troops had vanished, no signs of conflict, no plasma burns or blood. Just gone. One of the RZ troopers, Unit 7 Cal, requested rest to recalibrate his optical implant. Vorik permitted it. Cal removed his helmet, took 2 steps behind a moss-slicked boulder, and didn't return. Vorik found the helmet first. Then the twitching neural link still transmitting heartbeat, Cal's. But no body. The squad fell silent. Vorik recalibrated their pattern strategy, rotating watch directions every 17 seconds. No one was allowed more than 10 paces from another. They activated full-body infrared pulses in short bursts. They cut vines just to be sure they were vines.
But still it happened.
Unit 2 Vex looked away for a moment, and the soldier to his right collapsed, gurgling, slit from clavicle to gut. There was no flash, no sound, just the rustle of leaves folding back into place. Vork's calm fractured. Form perimeter. Light up the canopy, now. Flares hissed into the air. Blinding daylight poured over the underbrush, but all it illuminated were leaves, branches, and shadows that looked too still. Then one moved. A figure stepped out of a tree hollow 20 meters away. Human. Caked in mud and leaves, camo netting trailing from their shoulders. The jungle clung to them like a lover. They raised a single hand in mock greeting. Arsenal opened fire. The figure dropped, rolled, and vanished into the roots. A heartbeat later, two of the gunners screamed. One dragged into the soil, the other strangled by his own harness. The jungle exploded with motion. Human soldiers erupted from nowhere, kneeling in bushes hidden beneath tree roots, slithering through the undergrowth in ghillie suits stained to match the terrain exactly. Their rifles fired only in bursts. They vanished just as quickly, never lingering. It wasn't war. It was dissection. Vork managed to tag one with a plasma blast. The body dropped. He charged it, triumphant, only to find it was a decoy, one of their own drones, dressed in human scraps, made to bleed fake heat and leak noise. His HUD lit up with a final transmission from Unit 9 Orin. "We are not the predators. Not anymore." Then static. Above, aboard the Zeraxi command ship, Zarin stood alone in the interrogation cell. "I underestimated you," he admitted, staring at Reeve. The human rolled his bruised shoulder and nodded. "Most of you do, right until we start carving up your nightmares." Zarin turned to leave, but paused at the door. "You are limited. You lack true technology. Your species should have been eradicated cycles ago." Reeve's voice was quiet. "You don't understand. Camouflage isn't about hiding. It's about convincing. You made the mistake of thinking visibility was survival. But humans," he leaned forward, eyes like a predator's, "we learned long ago that the best weapon isn't what you carry. It's what you let the enemy believe isn't there." Back on the surface, Vork limped through the trees, the last of his unit gone. The jungle was silent again. Too silent. He turned sharply and saw eyes floating in the leaves. Human.
Calm.
Watching. Then they closed. And he was alone. Or not. The Zeraxi orbital fleet hovered above Virex, 9 in anxious silence, their communications grid fractured by interference patterns they still couldn't decrypt. Inside Command Deck Theta, General Zarin loomed over the tactical holomap, his patience fraying like thread through a grinder. Only a scattering of green signals remained. Survivors. The elite Arsenal detachment had been eradicated. No formal last stand. Just silence, then signal loss. 72 hours without confirmed contact. "They are ghosts," the comms officer muttered again. Quieter this time. Zarin said nothing. There were no more drones to deploy, no ground units left that weren't already presumed dead or mad. Surveillance footage showed empty terrain, static shadows, and the occasional distorted scream. The humans hadn't just neutralized their enemies. They'd rewritten the battlefield. On the surface, deep within the heart of the jungle, Lieutenant Jason Reeve moved without a sound. His team ghosted behind him, 21 veterans of Earth's long-dead brushfire wars, Rangers, Marines, Pathfinders. Each had been chosen for one reason. They didn't just know how to disappear. They knew how to make others question what they saw. Reeve's face was streaked with dirt and charcoal. His armor, if it could be called that, was little more than smart fabric netting and bone-silent plating, modded for motion silence, not protection. Because here, the rule wasn't take cover. The rule was be the cover. "Perimeter is soft," murmured Sergeant Vega beside him, her voice barely audible through the throat mic. Motion scans down. No sentries outside the uplink relay. "Of course not," Reeve muttered. "They think their satellites still matter." He tapped twice on his wrist pad. Miles away, a decoy unit shimmered to life, 3 holograms mimicking a charging human assault. The Zeraxi uplink post exploded into chaos, plasma bolts firing in every direction. In their panic, they never noticed the real humans emerging from the roots beneath them, silent and invisible. Minutes later, the uplink was gone. Not destroyed, redirected. Reeve rerouted the signal upward. Beacon online. Coordinates locked. In orbit, alarms blared aboard the Zeraxi command ship. Their own planetary uplink had been hijacked, transmitting not to them, but to the human recon fleet beyond the Kuiper Rift. Reinforcements were coming. The ghosts had whispered into space. In the brig, still chained, Reeves captured double, Sergeant Rowe, smiled faintly as the transmission confirmation blinked on his internal HUD. His biometric signature had been used to bypass Zeraxi encryption. Getting captured had never been a failure. It was the mission. Zarin ordered full withdrawal. The command ship began ascending, thrusters burning hard. Too late. The underhull shook with sudden, sharp detonations. Saboteurs. The humans hadn't aimed to win. They'd aimed to unravel. And now the seams were giving way. Inside the jungle, Reeve stood at the edge of the last Zeraxi firebase. He raised a finger, gesturing forward. His team fanned out. Some dropped to crawl beneath vines. Others vanished into branches above. They didn't attack. They waited. The aliens inside the firebase paced in tight patterns, weapons drawn but jittery. They didn't trust their gear anymore. Their thermal vision flickered with false readings. Auditory sensors pinged ghost signals. The humans were close. They felt it. Then one soldier screamed. A trapdoor beneath him had opened, not mechanical, but dug by hand and disguised with exacting detail. He dropped, vanished, no sound but the snatching hush of earth closing over him. The firebase broke. Panic swept through the ranks. Some fired randomly into the trees. Others tried to run, only to trigger snare lines, vine chokes, and crude pressure mines designed to incapacitate, not kill. Fear was more effective than plasma. A single broadcast echoed across the Zeraxi channel, a voice, human, calm. You thought the jungle was hostile. You didn't know we could talk to it. The firebase went dark. From above, the jungle now pulsed with low-frequency jamming, confusing any attempt to scan or strike. Zarin had lost his planet. But worse, he'd lost the illusion of control. He watched in disbelief as his flagship systems shut down one by one, internal sabotage coordinated with horrifying precision. They hadn't just been outmatched, they'd been outthought. On the surface, Reeve and Vega stood over the ruins of the firebase, marking the last confirmed Zeraxi position. Smoke curled lazily through the trees, dissipating against mossy boughs. Vega turned to him. That's the last of them. For now, Reeve said. He stared into the canopy, watching the shifting shadows. But they'll come back. Maybe not these ones, but others. Louder. Bigger.
Smarter.
Then we vanish again? Vega asked. Reeve shook his head. No, he said. Next time, we teach them to look over their shoulder. That's the lesson. From the treetops, a dozen human scouts watched.
Still.
Patient. Blending into bark and shadow. They did not cheer. They did not celebrate. They watched. On board the ruined Zeraxi flagship, drifting powerless above Virex, 9, a lone escape pod launched. Inside, Zarin stared down at the jungle with something new crawling beneath his exoskeletal plates. Not rage. Not confusion.
Fear.
Because in the jungles of Virex, 9, nothing had moved. But he knew somewhere down there someone was watching him. And they didn't need tech. They just needed time.